Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are waking up and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your new weekend out there so far. Man, do we have a ton of information to go over in this morning's video. And the first thing we'll speak on is today's weather. We'll talk about current conditions, watches and warnings, the latest outlooks, and then we'll break down the country section by section. There is a risk of strong to severe storms once again for today and to tonight. In fact, we're getting it this morning. So we'll speak on those areas. We'll zoom into individual sections of states, things like that. After we get done talking about today's weather, we will begin to speak on tomorrow's severe weather threat, Mondays, Tuesdays, and a little bit into Wednesday. We have a pretty active stretch coming up. Monday, we've been speaking on Monday a lot, guys. If you've been tuning in to not just my channel, but any channel out there, any kind of weather news network, Monday has the potential to be a legit tornado outbreak across areas of the central U.S. So we'll spend a lot of time on that. We'll talk about the outlooks first. We'll speak on the ingredients coming together. Still not quite close enough to break down like some of these short range models. They're just not in range yet. So they will really begin to get in range as we get into tomorrow. But we'll talk about some model guidance. We'll show you some stuff that should help you guys have an idea of what could unfold. But hour by hour, the closer we get, the more information that gets fed to us. So we'll speak on everything. If you're not interested in today's weather, totally get it. Timestamps are up throughout the entire video. Just skip right ahead to whatever you want to hear about. And I promise I got you a lot of details on it. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that we can pray over, pray about, please put it in the comments below so I can do that and so others have an opportunity to do so too. We'll have a Bible devotion at the very end of the video for you folks. And I do apologize for this video getting out a little bit later than normal. I've been struggling to get my videos going. It seems like it takes 10 to 15 minutes to just get the ball rolling, and this morning was certainly no different. But let's get rocking and rolling. So this is current conditions right now. Waking up to a whole lot of rain across the Northeast, New England, even sections of the Mid-Atlantic. We even had a downpour that went through my house, not literally through it, but went over my house here in central South Carolina about 30 minutes ago. So we continue just to have a lot of moisture across the eastern U.S. in general. And then we have this ongoing mess of storms across the panhandle of Oklahoma, really Texas, and just the stronger stuff is more so along the Red River. And this is like the third morning in a row we've had a complex of storms cruising through this area. We have flash flood warnings right now. We have ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings, and just not a lot of flow in the atmosphere. So all these storms that developed, there was a few very strong ones. One that really got going yesterday, pretty early yesterday afternoon, produced a tornado and just slowly kind of crept its way closer and closer to around Lubbock, Texas. But anyways, all that stuff kind of congealed together, and we're waking up to just a mess of storms in this area this morning. We got energy in California. Now, this is important because this rain and just energy and activity you see in California, this will eventually eject across the southern Rockies and across the plains and be a main driver to what will bring a multi-day severe weather risk across the country over the next few days. So also, it's beneficial because you guys are getting rain and haven't seen a whole lot of it over the last several weeks and couple months in the state of California. So a little bit of snow in the Sierra Nevada. Watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have some dense fog advisories in the gray. We got the flood watches, even the flash flood warnings ongoing right now across Texas and portions of Oklahoma. Red flag warnings, where we just have dry and fire risk, fire danger. So, typically when you have energy that shoots across the southern Rockies like this, a lot of these areas don't end up getting rain out of it and just high winds. So hopefully you can get a little bit of rain out of this, but more than likely you won't get a whole lot. We do have some winter storm watches up for some of the higher elevations of Montana, where you can get accumulating snow from a piece of this storm system, this trough that's going to dig down. And then we have scattered winter weather advisories, even all the way down to some of these southern mountain ranges in Southern California. So this is what's going on right now as far as that. And then the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. Let's see if we have another upgrade or update from them, and we don't right now. And we'll get another update from these guys probably within the hour. Just a marginal risk of severe weather, level 1 out of 5, going from the plains of Colorado down into eastern New Mexico, pretty far back west into New Mexico compared to the last several days. Risk of severe weather for some of the same areas of Texas, getting into Oklahoma, and this does ooze all the way into western Arkansas and northwestern Louisiana and the Arklatex. And then we do have a risk of strong to severe storms, level 1 out of 5, marginal risk across areas of the Mid-Atlantic, the Tidewater, the Delmarva, down into eastern Virginia, all of the eastern half of North Carolina, and it does get into portions of the PD of South Carolina. So some of these storms could pack a punch with a trough digging down and storms firing with some instability out there ahead of a cold front that will sweep down across the eastern U.S. And it's crazy. You can actually see where the trough is just based off the Storm Prediction Center outlook, as there's not really a risk of thunderstorms in this entire area, but around that trough and that boundary, there is. The risk of excessive rainfall in the yellow, there's a 15% risk of flash flooding occurring within 25 miles in any given location. And this is really for what's going on right now from Oklahoma City down to Wichita Falls. A lot of this heavy rainstorm activity will get closer to Denison, Ardmore, just further east down the Red River as we get to later in the morning into the afternoon hours. And we have to see what's left of these storms once we get all the way into Arkansas. And we'll zoom into that here in a second when we get to that area of the country. But the Southeast today, in general, we do have some energy going through South Carolina mainly right now. This could refire in the form of some storms along the Carolina coastline, as you see right here. But we're going to get additional thunderstorm activity that fires western areas in North Carolina and central Virginia. And this will eventually make its way west to east. And just some of these little storms right here could pack a punch. Some gusty winds is the main threat with these. And as we get later into the evening, we could still be dealing with some of these storms closer to midnight in eastern North Carolina. And then they'll clear the eastern seaboard. Some dry, less humid air will make its way across areas to the southeast, at least temporarily. But here's a closer look at like North Carolina, Virginia. It's not much. Here's the time up here, 3 p.m. You see these storms near Richmond, down to Greensboro. I mean, it doesn't look like much, but don't let it catch you off guard. These storms could, like I said, pack a punch, some gusty winds, maybe some small hail with this. Washington, D.C. getting into the Tidewater. And then we get in 8, 9, 10. Look at those storms moving through eastern North Carolina. Just could be a stormy evening for you guys. Not everybody will get rain, but if you do, it could be, a strong to severe storm. So just be aware of that. The Northeast dealing with a whole lot of rain right now, and this will continue through the morning hours. Just a soaker up here in Maine today, areas of Vermont, New Hampshire. But the further south you get, you see this low pressure. Once you get south of this low, more warm air to deal with, just better thermodynamics, better instability in the atmosphere. And we could get some storms going across this area. You see kind of the pockets of orange, red, and yellow, some heavier rain, some thunderstorms, something could be strong to severe. Marginal risk does extend all the way up through New Jersey. So we get into this afternoon, then we get into this evening, and look at those storms are going across southern New England. Could even get a thunderstorm up here in southern Maine. Guys, I wouldn't be surprised one bit we get a tornado warning or two up here in New England. There's just enough I say there's just enough wind energy in the atmosphere, just a touch of thermodynamics could overlap each other, and we might get a tornado warning or two. Don't let us surprise you, but this sweeps through, drier, cooler air moves in, and we get some wet snow up here in Canada, and this low pressure could continue to spin around in Maine, and we might be waking up to just some heavier rain showers up in Maine, and tomorrow morning maybe a little bit of snow in the Adirondacks. But a closer look at some of these storms today that could reach severe limits shows New York City, Boston, down to New Jersey. And this is getting to 4 p.m., 5 p.m. You see just scattered storms everywhere. And like I said, they could produce some small hail, gusty winds, and just we cannot rule out a tornado, especially up in southern New England. It would be a weak one, obviously, but and there's not even a 2% risk. This is just kind of me throwing that out there. But we start to get into late this evening, and things do begin to clear out. Some dry, cooler air stabilizes the atmosphere. Now, down here in the south central U.S., we'll have this just complex of storms, what we call an MCS, mesoscale convective system, that will continue to cruise across some of the same areas that's been dealing with the leftovers of this energy that forms in western Texas that we've been dealing with just the last few days. So these storms will be cruising across areas of southern Oklahoma, northern Texas, and eventually this area of storms will make its way into western Arkansas late this evening. And just a closer look at all this, like this is pretty much right now. So as we start to move into about lunchtime, some heavy rain and storm activity will move into Lawton, Oklahoma City. Then we start to get into, say, 4 p.m. Storms could be strong to severe, move into Wichita Falls. And listen, some of these areas could upgrade to a slight risk. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I mean, I really wouldn't be. But, you see some circles coming off some of these storms kind of outside of McAllister. I mean, we could get a spin up today. We could get a tornado in some of these areas. Don't rule it out. And these storms will begin to potentially get their act back together as they start moving to eastern Oklahoma. So could have a line of thunderstorms later this evening moving through eastern Oklahoma. And watch these cells down here in northern Texas too. They could produce some large hail and some other hazards also. But as we're starting to get into, say, 9, 10 p.m., a lot of this energy begins to move into Arkansas. But could get another supercell or two that forms later this evening in the panhandle of Oklahoma and really Texas. But here's a closer look at Arkansas. Line of storms can move in. If you live in Fort Smith, Fayetteville, the Rogers, down to Mena, if that's the way you say it, even the Arklatex, Mary, be careful. Could have a line of storms that moves through, and it could be falling apart once it gets into like Little Rock, but it could very well be holding together too. So up here in the north central U.S., not a whole lot to speak on, guys. It's calm. It's not going to stay calm for long. So enjoy your calm weather because things are going to begin to switch up as early as tomorrow morning. We begin to get some rain surging north with a ramping up low-level jet. This is going to bring a lot of warm, moist air pretty dramatically, pretty far north, pretty quick tomorrow morning. So the atmosphere, you will feel a sudden shift in the atmosphere when you compare today to tomorrow. So setting the stage for a hefty, severe weather day for our Monday. Not a lot going on today, though. Across the western U.S., we got this spin across California. Some of this rain will hit colder air in the Sierra Nevada. This will fall in the form of some snow. And then we'll just maybe even have a thunderstorm or two in the Valley of California. We get later into tonight, all the way into tomorrow morning. We continue just to deal with this spin. And just looking at how much precipitation could fall, a few tenths of an inch of rain down here in Southern California. And some of those higher elevations, this could fall in form a little bit of some snow, which is late April. It's pretty wild to think about. Not totally unusual, but I mean, it's late April. So, but it could get some accumulating snow in the Sierra Nevada. How much snow over the next 48 hours? A good bit. Several inches, maybe over a foot, a couple feet in certain areas. And some of these higher elevations in the southern mountain ranges of California could get some accumulating snow too, including Nevada. So temperatures, you're going to get that spike of warmth up into New England, but temperatures will actually probably drop today across western areas of New England, the interior sections. Like, for example, eastern PA could warm into the 60s and 70s. Western PA could be dropping into the 50s and 40s. So cooler day in West Virginia, but you start to get into Virginia, the Carolinas, Southeast, 80s, humid. Stable air mass in place for today across the middle of the country, but that'll change in tomorrow. But the deep south, you stay pretty warm, stay pretty humid. Western U.S., cold front will be sweeping in. A lot of rain, cooled air is really what it is across Oklahoma and Texas. So there'll be a pretty gnarly temperature gradient across areas of the southern plains. Temperatures will warm up pretty nicely across the high plains, and it definitely is cooler across the southwest, especially California, Oregon, with lower pressure overhead. So let's begin. I bit my tongue there. Let's begin to switch gears into tomorrow. Listen, tomorrow's severe weather threat cannot be overlooked, and I've mentioned this a couple times, guys. It doesn't look too alarming. This is for tomorrow, Sunday. But we could get an upgrade. The only thing that's holding up tomorrow from being a bigger severe weather day is really a cap. So, just a capping mechanism, a little bit of warm air aloft prevents these updrafts from really getting going. And then just lack of probably kinematics out here, lack of flow. But that'll change dramatically later tomorrow night. But anyways, getting into the outlook, there is a marginal risk that level 1 out of 5 that extends all the way up to the Canadian-U.S. border, all the way down to the U.S.-Mexico border. And right in the middle of it, like Nebraska being the heart of it, There is a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather, a slight risk. This gets into southern South Dakota and a very small section of northern Kansas. So what about the tornado outlook with this? Right now, there's just a 2% risk in areas of Colorado, huge section of Kansas and Nebraska, very small section of the panhandle of Oklahoma. So in this green area, like I said, 2% risk of a tornado. Wind threat, the brown area is a 5% risk of damaging winds. The yellow area, which includes like North Platte, up into Valentine, Kearney. These areas, there's a 15% risk of damaging winds, so winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat, it's about the same, pretty much over the higher damaging wind threat. 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. One thing I watch for with this is, do we get a dramatic change with short-range model guidance over the next 12 to 18 hours for tomorrow's severe weather threat? And we could. It happens a lot. The latest 06Z HRRR model, which I'll show you here in a second, doesn't show much storm activity through the daylight areas across this entire severe weather threat area for tomorrow. But that could change dramatically. But right now, large area that at least has a risk of severe weather. Monday. Guys, this is the big day. I mean, we already have a moderate risk in the red, level 4 out of 5 of severe weather at day 3, which is Monday. Okay, this includes La Crosse, Eau Claire, includes down to Des Moines, Dubuque, it includes Minneapolis. I mean, this is stuff you typically see like into late May, even June, where the severe weather threat typically on average shifts further north and further up in latitudes. Enhanced risk, guys, goes all the way up to the Canadian-U.S. border, Duluth, Marquette, Green Bay, just down to Omaha, Kansas City, Topeka, Rockford included in this, slight risk, and the yellow includes everywhere around the orange area. I mean, the rest of the eastern UP of Michigan, basically. Milwaukee, Chicago, Springfield, Peoria, Springfield, Missouri, Springfield, Illinois, Wichita. And I know I got the southern areas cut off. I'm going to show you guys here in a second. So what do we know about this right now? Red, level 4 out of 5, moderate. Orange, level 3 out of 5, enhanced risk. Level 2 out of 5 is in the yellow, a slight risk, and the dark green is a marginal. What do we know about this right now? All we know is this. In the purple area, there is at least, and this is actually more so pink. Some people might call that purple, but technically purple is the 60%. My face is in the way. But so in the pink area right here, okay, that is a 45% chance of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. 45% chance, almost a 50-50 shot. The red area is a 30% chance of severe weather. And when we're talking day 3, when I say just like a 45 or 30 or 15% chance of severe weather, that could be any severe weather. Tornadoes, damaging winds, large hail. Okay, and like I said, the yellow is a 15% risk of any severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. You see the black outlined area with the black dashes going in between it? This includes a good chunk of the 45% risk area. And an area of the 30% risk area in the red, and then it extends all the way into the southern areas, which I'll show you here in a second. That is where we have a 10% risk of significant severe weather. That can be either an EF2 or stronger tornado, winds exceeding 75 to 80, 85 miles per hour, or that could be hail larger than 2 inch in diameter. Okay, and we are going to get significant severe weather Monday, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. So the discussion on this actually says the potential is there for several, I think it says that, several strong to intense tornadoes, which is EF2 to EF3 tornadoes. And I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually start to use the word violent tornadoes, which is getting EF4s and stuff like that. So the ingredients have been showing up for days for this, and this is going to be pretty dicey, guys. So, yeah. So pink area. So, man, I'm telling you, it looks like purple to me. But pink area, 45% chance 45% chance or higher of severe weather within 25 miles in any given location. The color always mixes me up every time I show it. But I do want to show the southern mode, and we're going to just back out of this and do this on the fly. So if you don't like all the changes on the screen, I do apologize. But I do want to show the southern mode of this. Here it is. Right now, just slight risk does extend right through the heart of Oklahoma, all the way down into western areas and central sections of Texas. This is for Monday. So what we know here is just a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. But one thing I will note here is there is a hatched risk also. So in the black outlined area with the black dashes going in between, there's also a 10% risk of significant severe weather. So I think it'll be more conditional down here. But I still think that some of these storms could produce all hazards down here, just not as good of overlapping ingredients for sure. So now Tuesday cannot be ignored either. A very large area of the country has a risk of severe weather. I'm talking about from Burlington, Vermont, all the way down to San Angelo, Texas, and everywhere in between in this yellow area. That's a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather, basically a slight risk at day 4. I mean, this includes Oklahoma City, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Little Rock, Fayetteville, Springfield, Missouri, Springfield, Illinois, St. Louis, the boot of Missouri, northwest areas of Tennessee, central and western areas of Kentucky, the entire state of Indiana, including Indianapolis, Evansville, Columbus, Cincinnati, Louisville, Cleveland, includes Detroit, up into southern areas of Michigan, Kalamazoo, includes Pittsburgh, down to Charleston, West Virginia, Buffalo, Binghamton, just a ton of people, includes a lot of areas, has a 15% risk of severe weather. Now, day 5, a little baby area down here, the Dallas-Fort Worth is right in the heart of it. This is new. This is for Wednesday. There's a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location in this area for Wednesday. The Arklatex, Dallas-Fort Worth area, and all the way up into like Ardmore and southern areas of Oklahoma. So what's bringing this all together? We'll talk about kinematics first. So what you're looking at here is winds at 500 millibars. 500 millibars, when you convert that to feet, is about 18,000 feet up in the air. So these are the winds. So I put my cursor over here. It says, for example, and this is for tomorrow morning, it says 66, 65 knots. So you convert that to miles per hour, and just it's like 75, 80 miles per hour to miles per hour. I know it's not the exact conversion, but obviously this is a model run, not exactly the wind speed that's going on. It's just a prediction here. So waking up Sunday morning, what you notice here is there's this little bowling ball looking feature. So I'm going to draw on this a little bit. So it's coming down like this and digging here. So this is a dip in the jet stream. This dip in the jet stream brings kinematics, wind energy with it. And here it is right here in the purple, what I just did my cursor over, and this is flow at 18,000 feet up in the air. So this is bringing the wind energy, one of the ingredients for severe weather, forcing mechanism, what really gets the flow going, what pushes these storms, what gets them just to get going. So it's kind of the oomph, if you will. So yeah, you move this forward here, and we get into the prime heating of the day, like Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. What you notice is this stronger flow in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. Our mid-level jet, is what we call it in the weather community, begins to progress more towards the middle of the country. So we got better flow now over this area compared to if we started off, say, this evening. For example, this is what it looks like for tonight, right? Most of your flow over the southwest. Now we scoot it over 24 hours, and we take it all the way out to tomorrow late afternoon, tomorrow evening. You can see how the more darker, vibrant colors, whatever you want to call it, begins to scoot towards the middle of the country. So now we have better flow moving across central areas of the country. This is why you have a severe weather threat all the way up here, because you have better flow up here now. And you obviously have flow across this section right here, which is probably why you have a higher severe weather threat in Nebraska, areas of Kansas, because your best overlapping ingredients is there. And I'll talk about dew points, moisture at the surface, and the low levels here in a second. But watch as we begin to move into our Monday. So we get into Monday morning. You see all those colors on your screen, the purples, the pinks begin to progress towards the middle of the country and begin to strengthen. So I'm going to take it all the way out to say this is Monday midday, Monday early afternoon. Now we have this streak, this mid-level jet approaching 80 knots over areas of the Midwest and the plains. This provides a lot of kinematic energy, wind energy needed for these storms. And that's an ingredient that you can check off the box. Now, one thing I have been mentioning a lot is, if I circle this little wind barb right here, you see how the flag portion of it's, pointing this way? That means that the flow in the mid-levels of the atmosphere is coming out of this way, out of this direction. So, what direction is that coming out of? The south. So, of course, you got flow in any levels of the atmosphere coming out the south. That's bringing up better thermodynamic energy, better low-level moisture into the picture, into the higher latitudes, into further north from the lower latitudes. And of course, you have the low-level flow, which you actually look at more when we're trying to figure out like tornado threats and things like that. I'm going to actually show you that here in a second. One thing you don't really see on your screen is also a ridge in place that's actually pumping up better moisture at the surface this way too. But I don't want to get too hung up on that. So this is Monday midday. Now we start to take into Monday afternoon, Monday evening. You got this streak, this mid-level jet going right over that moderate risk area. So this is OOZ Tuesday, Monday evening. So tons of wind energy, kinematics, going right over literally the entire severe weather threat area. It makes sense. So if you compare this, right, to, let's do something here. You compare this to this, okay? So look at that, and then look at this. Has the same tilt, doesn't it? This doesn't always show where the best severe weather is going to be. There's other features you got to look at too, like where's the better low-level moisture. But it is an ingredient, and it definitely is overlapping a very moist environment, which is what I'm about to show you here in a second. So you keep going, this is obviously going to be the big severe weather day, but Tuesday could be a big day too, guys. I'm telling you. And then we start to get into Tuesday. We're taking into Tuesday afternoon, it's Tuesday evening. And then this is where your main flow is now in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. So it's kind of going like this. So you kind of have this avenue of kinematic energy, wind energy that supports lift for thunderstorms. Lift is a word I like to use a lot. Flow is a word I like to use a lot. And there will be plenty of that across this entire arrow I just drew, along and overlapping a very moist environment. And I'm not going to talk much on Wednesday yet, but I'm telling you, Tuesday could be a bigger severe weather threat, a higher tornado threat across, I think, the Ohio Valley. But one thing I'll show you here, this is the low-level jet. Winds at 850 millibars. You convert that to feet, that's like 4,000 to 6,000 feet. Okay, this is when you look up in the sky on the morning of a big severe weather day and the clouds are like racing. You almost can like touch them and they're like moving what seems like high speeds, and they are. So this is what you really look at when you're really trying to pinpoint the best kinematics, best wind energy for where your higher tornado threat's going to be and your higher damaging wind threat's going to be. So where is that going to be? Well, this is tomorrow afternoon. I'm sorry. Okay, you already have that low-level jet beginning to increase. And if you look at these wind barbs here, you see how this is pointing directly out the south. If you remember looking at the mid-level jet, it was more coming out the southwest. So this is more out of this direction, okay, low-level flow. Mid-level flow, higher up, 18,000 feet, is coming more so out of this. So if we got the crisscrossing of these arrows, what is that doing? Well, that's going to put a little spin in the atmosphere, directional shear, okay? So anyways, you keep this going. We get into Monday afternoon, Sunday afternoon. I do get my days mixed up sometimes. It's Sunday afternoon. That's important not to. You can already see that low-level jet's beginning to increase because we have a short-wave surface feature ejecting off this trough. Those little short waves, surface lows, enhance the low-level field because it is more of a low-level feature. All right, so as we're getting into Sunday evening now, you got a low-level jet pushing 40 to 50 knots. That is certainly efficient enough to get storms going and to definitely increase the damaging wind and tornado threat. So I really think for tomorrow, storms won't begin to really fire until later tomorrow night. And the Storm Prediction Center really mentions that. They mentioned that the low-level jet increases after OOZ, which is tomorrow evening. But check it out. As we're getting into Monday evening, Monday morning, Mitch, slow down. Monday morning, 12Z Monday. You already have a raging low-level jet right over eastern areas of Nebraska, through Kansas, up into Iowa, South Dakota, all the way up into southern areas of Minnesota. I mean, this is extending all the way down to Oklahoma. If you can look at the wind barbs, they're actually turning and kind of going in a circular motion right here. That is because there's a surface low right in here, kind of a short wave. So we start to get into Monday afternoon, and the low-level jet is just raging across Iowa, Minnesota, areas of Wisconsin, okay, the UP of Michigan, all the way down into Missouri. So once again, I'll go back and show you this, guys. This is where your best low-level kinematics are going to be. Yeah, I mean, you got a little bit of a low-level jet down here, but I mean, it's only 20, 25 knots. Up here, it's over 40 knots, which, 30 to 40 knots to me is always that big-time threshold for a supportive low-level jet for tornadoes, to me. But you look at this, best low-level energy, you compare it to this, that's where your moderate risk is. That's where your enhanced risk is, and it makes sense. So winds are whipping at interstate speed, about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air, okay? And this does nothing but increase. So I could see a big-time damaging wind, damaging line of storms sweeping across areas of the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region, down to areas just the regular Midwest, all the way into Monday night, leading into the wee hours of the morning into Tuesday morning. And then we start to get into Tuesday morning, okay? Low-level jet pushing over 40 to 45, 50 knots across the Ohio Valley. And then we start to get to the prime heating of the day, Tuesday afternoon. And I'm telling you guys, there's a severe weather threat all the way down here into the southern plains. But your best low-level wind field will be over the Ohio Valley into interior sections of the Northeast. I think there will be a legit tornado threat across areas of the Ohio Valley into the Northeast as we are starting to get into Tuesday afternoon. That is where your best low-level kinematics will be. No doubt about it. I mean, look as you get into like Tuesday evening, raging low-level jet over the entire Northeast. Okay, so it's going to be gusty winds, strong gusty winds, even if you don't have any storms. Okay, so yeah, we got to watch. And then we have a little impulse of energy down here, and I think this is why we get that 15% risk of severe weather for Wednesday down here. A little bit of impulse of low-level flow. And then kind of one of the last couple things we'll look at here is moisture at the surface. So Sunday afternoon, I keep wanting to think Sunday is Tuesday. I don't know why, no correlation there. But Sunday afternoon, dew points on the Euro, all the way up into the 60s through Kansas and Nebraska, and certainly points south. Dew points in the 60s and higher certainly support severe weather. These storms, they like moist air. Once you get into the 50s, not as supportive, but 50s will still work, especially higher up in elevation that you are. But dew points surging into the 60s because of this increasing low-level jet, and it really, this low-level moist sector begins to really increase pretty far north as that low-level jet increases and that southerly flow generated by that low-level jet increases. So by the time we get into Monday morning, look how the dew points are surging all the way deep into the 60s into Minnesota, Wisconsin, the entire state of Iowa. So by the time we're into, say, Monday afternoon, guys, I mean, dew points are into the 60s all the way up into Duluth just about. And then look how moist the environment is across, the upper, the middle, the lower Mississippi Valley, points east and west. And this is all because of that low-level jet that really gets going and gets that southerly flow up in this area. So tons of moist air, guys. And look, the dew points creep all the way into the 60s, all the way up into the UP of Michigan. This is getting into late Monday night. And then how are the dew points going to be for this better low-level kinematic area across the Northeast and Ohio Valley? They're in the 60s. I'm telling you, tornado threat across the Ohio Valley and the interior sections of the Northeast, and maybe all of the Northeast for Tuesday afternoon. Tornado threat will be there because of the overlapping ingredients. That's what it comes down to. Thermodynamics is your surface moisture, your CAPE levels, which I'll show you here in a second. And then kinematics is your wind energy. And CAPE levels, Sunday afternoon, you got CAPE spiking over 2,000, 2,500 joules per kilogram. It's just, are you going to get any storms that actually fire? You got to get storms to fire to tap into the energy in the atmosphere. And guys, this is what's scary. this is what's very alarming to me, is these high-end Cape values showing up across Iowa and surrounding states. Over 3,000 joules per kilogram of Cape in these areas, with that being overlapped by an extremely favorable climatic environment for just severe weather. It is alarming. It's a bit alarming. This is where we can get a high risk day. And then we get into Tuesday, and I mean, Cape levels spiked over 1,000 joules per kilogram into areas of the Northeast and the Ohio Valley. And guys, you don't even need 1,000 joules per kilogram to get a tornado of mixed layer Cape. You really don't. But I know this isn't as much fuel in the atmosphere for Tuesday, but that is plenty. I mean, you got pockets over 2,000 joules per kilogram mixed layer Cape in areas of Pennsylvania and Ohio. There's going to be a tornado threat for Tuesday too, and I could see it being an increasing tornado threat as we get closer. So the last thing we'll speak on here is just what the radar could look like, and unfortunately we're not really in range to really show you good visual information on this. But starting off Tuesday morning, why do I keep wanting to call Sunday Tuesday? Well, what is up with that? Starting off tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, and we're getting into Sunday afternoon. Like, for example, this is Sunday afternoon. There's nothing going on across this entire marginal and slight risk area. But watch as we start to get into late at night. We start to get some thunderstorms forming in the Dakotas. Still not a whole lot going in Nebraska and Kansas. But I'm telling you, we're going to get some other, model guidance that comes in over the next 24 hours, and this could change. But right now, I mean, this takes us all the way out to about 1 a.m. Monday morning. And I mean, there's nothing going on across the entire marginal and slight risk area, at least the central and southern areas. We got some storms up here, but that could change, I'm telling you. Now, we start to get into the higher risk area as we get into Monday. All we can look at is the Euro, and it shows the idea: surface low cruising through Minnesota, and all we can see is just splotches of green and yellow and orange. But this will be powerful supercells, especially in the southern mode down here. This could be more so damaging wind threat driven. We are going to have a big time damaging wind threat with this. But this could be a nasty squall line. It could be supercells, tornadoes embedded. But we're just not in short range model guidance. And then we get into Tuesday, and here's a little bit of a view a little bit further south and east, and this is getting into Tuesday, and we could just get storms everywhere across this region. But I'm telling you, I really think this area up here could see the worst of it. So this is Tuesday afternoon. You see just these clusters of green, yellow, and orange, red, whatever. These could be tornado-producing storms for Tuesday afternoon. I know it don't look like much on this, but I'm telling you, when we get into short-range model guidance, that'll be a different story. So, that's a mouthful. That's it with that. Let's go over to Bible devotion and wrap this up. I'm sure my people that like to tune in early are pretty not mad at me, but definitely wish the video would have got out a little bit earlier, and I wish it would have too. But some mornings, especially on the weekends, are like this. But this morning we're in Proverbs, and this is Proverbs 19, verse 21. So Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21 says, it's a simple verse here in Scripture. It says, many plans are in a person's heart, but the Lord's decree will prevail. So I think my life, for example, is a huge. All the low points in my life, I would say personally, which is part of my testimony, obviously. Most of it occurred in my 20s, and it was because I really didn't follow that scripture. Me and my wife, in the early stages of our marriage, we decided to force feed a lot of stuff. We decided we wanted things now. We didn't really go to God, for guidance on those things. And some of those things were sins. Some of those things were definitely not God's will in our life, at least at that time. So, it wasn't anything bad, guys. We just had kids. We had kids before marriage. Our first child we had was before we got married, and I mean, it happens to a lot of people, but we spent money that we really didn't have. I think we all do that every once in a while, and we got in some debt. We just financially, and we just didn't go to the Lord to these things. Instead, we just did it the way we wanted to. And granted, I didn't. Me and my wife didn't. And as the leader of the family, I didn't do a great job leading our family to church. But I didn't have really any relationship. I knew God, but I wasn't actively seeking to better my relationship with Christ. So I didn't, I guess you would say, know any better. I wasn't going to church. But where I'm going out with all this stuff is a huge part of my testimony and what I lacked, points back to that scripture. And I think it's a lot of people too. And I think that it's a passage of scripture that a lot of people don't think about. I'm always big on when you pray, don't pray for your desires, pray for God's will on your life. So if you're praying about a certain situation, for example, say, God, if it's your will, can this work out for me, or can this not happen, or can this happen? Because I'm telling you guys, and I'm a product of this. If you don't follow his will, it's not going to work out. And, sometimes you're going to create your own route in life. You're going to create your own route, and it's not the route that God wants you to take. And you're going to take that route. You're going to realize that it ain't going to work, whether it's immediately or a couple years down the road. And then you're going to go back to God, and then you're going to, say, hey, which way do I go? And God will reroute you. The thing is the more that God has to reroute you, in my opinion, this is my take on it, the more that he has to reroute you to get back to his plan on your life, the harder it is to get back to where you need to be, if that makes sense. So the longer route, the longer road back it is. So, if you just seek his will in your life, maybe it's going to take you through something that you really don't want to go through. It's going to make you very uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, you're going to be blessed for it. It's what you're supposed to do. And you're really going to find true joy and happiness in his will on your life over your will on your life, if that makes sense. So seek his will, his route on your life, and not your own, and stop going down the road that you want to go through, that you want to go down, because each time that he has to reroute you, the harder it is for you to get back to where you're supposed to be. So hope that makes sense. It's a 45-minute video just about. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. And I probably will have a video tonight. Not quite sure, but we will definitely be doubling up starting tomorrow. But I think I'll have a video tonight. But God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon.